Okay, I would like to start this video off by saying I feel like V-Stars fall into three distinct categories. Three. The first category is the really broken V-Stars, Giratina, Arceus, Palkia V-Star. They are the broken ones, right? The second group is the really bad ones, your Glaceon V-Stars, for example. Really, really bad. Cleavor V-Star comes to mind, actually. Another really bad card. Just really bad. And then the third group is that weird group of V-Stars which are playable, so you can win games with them, but they're not great either, and they're certainly not trash. However, because there's just so many better options and better decks than standard, most of the time they just get ignored and fall under the wayside. And so, in true tradition, I thought it would be a good idea to take another look at Hisuian Samurott Vstar, at least before it gets any more buffs in the future. So for those of you who don't know, this is easily my favorite V-Star. I did think it was Aerodactyl for a little while, not going to lie, but Hisuian Samurott has just consistently been the most fun to use in games, and I think it's one of the more interesting cards in Standard, at least. So a 270 HP Dark-type V-Star, quite nice already. Merciless Blade for 2 Dark Energy, does 110 damage, and if your opponent's active is already damaged, this attack does 110 more. So doing 110 base is pretty atrocious, right? Let's be honest here. 110 base, trash. Like, that's not even 2-hit KOing most relevant EX Pokemon, let alone Charizard. So yeah, terrible base damage. However, 110 more if they are already damaged, and that's assuming they already have damage on them, effectively, which I know sounds weird, but it basically means if we, per se, hit them with a Morpeko, for example, right? We do 70 damage with Morpeko. It would mean that the Merciless Blade is not just doing 220, it's effectively doing 290, because we've got to factor in the 70 from Morpeko. So this is actually quite a powerful Pokemon to 2-hit KO stuff with. So Merciless Blade, cool attack. Also just means we can get KOs on stuff like Miraidon EX, as well as Chien-Pao EX, so pretty good damage overall. It also has the ability Mooncleave Star, however, which says once in your turn, you may put 4 damage counters on one of our opponent's Pokemon, which is pretty good. It just means that potentially if we go first, attach a Dark Energy to Hisuian Samurott, then next turn we evolve. If your opponent doesn't bench anything, they just have an EX with 220 HP, or even a bit higher than that, 240 maybe, you can just use Mooncleave Star and then finish them off with a Merciless Blade. That is a way you can win games with this deck. It also just gives you 2 prize cards, so even if you don't win, technically, it's still a fantastic ability to use. And being an ability is fantastic. The fact that you can choose your opponent's bench Pokemon as well is also really cool, but truth be told, most of the time you will just use this in combination with Merciless Blade to get a KO on your opponent's active. So yeah, really cool. But what else does this deck have to offer? I mean, we've kind of already touched upon Morpeko, but this guy says if it has no energy attached, it has no retreat cost. So it is essentially a pivot for the rest of the game, which is quite nice, even if we don't use Energizer Wheel in the early turns. But this attack, if you do choose to use it, does 70 damage, which sets up that Merciless Blade, which is fantastic, while also moving the 2 Dark Energy from Morpeko to Hisuian Samurott. So that will essentially allow you to conserve those energies and turn Morpeko into a pivot. So even if your opponent doesn't KO Morpeko, they boss KO something else or boss up your Samurott, you will at least still have Morpeko as a pivot option for the rest of the game, which is nice. Then we also have some other new interesting options. Brute Bonnet, for example, doubles as both a single prize attacker because we are playing Dark Patch, but it also has the nasty ability Toxic Powder. It says once in your turn, if it has an Agent Booster capsule, we can poison both active Pokemon. And you may think, oh, that's really bad because you poison your own Samurott. And yes, you do, okay? I'm fully aware of that. However, why we are okay with doing this is it just means that sometimes the poison will allow us to swing for Merciless Blade to do 220. And at that point, you're doing 230 with a poison. And sometimes that is necessary and therefore relevant. So if we have to poke ourselves for 10 poison damage, it's not really the end of the world. And Hisuian Samurott's probably getting 2-hit KO'd anyway, so as long as it matters more to us than it does to them, then the poison is worth it. And as such, I'm also playing this Hisuian Sneasler, just as an excuse really to play the Radiant I mean, you could play Radiant Greninja. It probably has better synergy with Dark Patch and such. But to be honest, I'm just a bit sick of Radiant Greninja, and I wanted to try out this guy. So it says during Pokemon checkup, put 2 more damage counters on your opponent's poison Pokemon. So the poison goes up to 3, which is quite impressive, and it just means Merciless Blade will be doing 250 at that point, which will be enough to KO stuff like Raging Bolt post-rotation, assuming they don't have their own Ancient Capsule. So yeah, quite a nice combination. And then we have my trusted Rungeon of Bibarel. No Curliers around here. I don't think Curlier draws you nearly enough cards most of the time, and discarding something can be a bit painful. So Industricizers for the win, at least in my opinion. So what about trainers? So I thought it would be quite fun to try out Giovanni's Charisma. So what this card does is put an energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon back into their hand. So against some decks, this won't be doing a lot because of the amount of rapid energy acceleration in the format. You know, look at Charizard, for example. However, against some decks, like even against Miraidon, this can be quite frustrating because it means they often have to commit another energy if they want to retaliate. So even if you have to 2-hit KO something, if you're removing an energy, you're essentially saying to your opponent, do you want to attach another energy and commit to an attack? Or do you then want to just put that energy on your bench Pokemon and essentially sacrifice your active Pokemon? So that's kind of what Giovanni's Charisma is here for. It's forcing our opponent into tricky situations. And also it's a bit of bonus energy acceleration. So if we whiff an attachment or something, because we're only playing 10 energy at the end of the day, then, you know, Giovanni's Charisma can help with accelerating some energy. After that, the trainers are pretty self-explanatory. It's nothing too crazy. It's more or less what you'd expect from a deck like this. Earthen Vessel, allowing you to discard potentially other Dark Energy to combo with Dark Patch, and then allowing us to find more Dark Energy from the deck. So that's that. 3 copies of Dark Patch, you know, speak of the devil. 1 copy of the XP share just to kind of help keep energy in play for our Hisuian Samurotts. And then 2 copies of Ancient Booster Capsule, which sadly will never modify the HP of Hisuian Samurott, RIP. However, it will allow us to use the Amoonguss Fungus to do its poison effect. So, quite nice. Then we also have 10 copies of basic Dark Energy, because you really don't need any other energy in this deck. So that is Hisuian Samurott Vstar. It's not great, it's not terrible, it's a lot better than I thought it was going to be, especially right now in the format. And I think this will honestly be really good post-rotation, because although there might be a lot of grass decks trying to capitalize on the amount of Charizard, at the very least, you will be able to KO a lot of these evolving basic EXs. Well, not evolving basic EXs, but you know what I mean. The basic EXs that don't evolve, I should say. And then, of course, you know, basic evolving Pokemon go down anyway to Merciless Blade. So yeah, this is Hisuian Samurott. Hope you enjoyed today's video. Let me know what you think down below. And yeah, thank you for watching.